What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Anon, and today we are going to be taking apart and cleaning our carburetor for our 2008 Supermach 700. So for you guys that have less mechanical experience, carb cleaning is not too complicated of a job. If you follow along with this, you're going to be able to do it yourself. And more often than not, most running issues are caused by dirty carbs. So this will be a great step-by-step video on how to clean yours and keep your machines in good running condition. Alright guys, so for the lack of space at the moment, I've just put a piece of cardboard on my tool cart, and that's going to be our workbench. Biggest issue, taking these float bowl screws off. As you can see, they're very tiny Phillips screws. A lot of times they're in there pretty tight and they get stripped out. The best thing you can do is use a long screwdriver. As you twist, the shaft will actually twist a bit, giving you some tension on there, and then the screws will usually come loose. Now I already popped this off to have a quick look at it. So my screws are already loose, but now your float bowl usually has a rubber O-ring type gasket, so you may have to knock it with your screwdriver handle. Simply just get onto the side and just knock it loose. It should pop off, and then once it is loose, just very gently take it apart. If the gasket does stick, usually if you're gentle with it, they will come apart without wrecking them. You can see that the rubber gasket is there, and like I said, they do stick a little bit, but if you're gentle, they will come apart. I don't know how much you can see, but it's actually not as dirty as I expected. I was expecting a whole bunch of gunk and stuff in here, because like I said, it was running pretty rough, and fuel was just pouring out from the float being stuck open, and yeah, it actually does not look too bad in there. So, but we're going to take it apart, clean all the jets anyway. I'm not going to take the whole thing apart because, like I said, it doesn't look too bad, but I'll take all the main jets out, take the float out for the needle and seat, make sure she's good to go. Again, I like using long handle screwdrivers just because they help with getting tighter jets and screws out without having to use a whole bunch of force, because as you twist, it'll help spring load that shaft, causing it to twist up as well. This is one little jet. Don't know if you'll be able to see in it or not. It's actually clean, I can see right through it, so not a big concern. Now that jet there is actually the jet for our needle. We see the needle in there. That is for this one here. You can't see it, but the needle actually sits inside there. And like I said, it's clear, so that's probably why it was able to keep running when I held the throttle a little bit. So we're just going to go ahead and put that jet back in, and then we will take out the next one. Definitely expecting one of these to be plugged at least, because like I said, it didn't really idle. It kind of stalled out when I let off the throttle. is our next jet. And just trying to look through it, I cannot see any light whatsoever. So that is probably plugged. So before I go ahead and try and use any cleaner and soak it or whatever, if you guys have a store that sells torches, like cutting torches and stuff, you can get this here. They're torch tip cleaners, and they come in various sizes of wire. So it's like a one kit, has all different sizes. And what you can do with that is you pick a real fine jet tip cleaner, and then all you're going to do is put it inside the jet in the hole and see if you can push it through. And this is the smallest wire, and it does not want to push through, so we're going to have to soak that one, and hopefully we can clear it. For now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get a small container of some sort. You can use applesauce container, yogurt container. The aerosol lids, if they don't have any holes in them, you can just flip the lid upside down. I'm going to use this because I have it handy, and all I'm going to do is put the jet in there, just like so, and then once we know which jets are plugged, we're going to put them all in here, and like I said, we're going to add cleaner to it, and it will dissolve any garbage that's built up in there, and then we'll have to go back through with the torch tip cleaners and get them cleared out after we soften up that gunk. So moving on to the next jet here. So this was our first jet that was cleared. We pulled out the next jet here, and now pulling out this third one. You're definitely going to want to get yourself a good set of screwdrivers, particularly something that's not going to strip. Like I said, those Phillips are pretty common for stripping, so you're going to want a good Phillips screwdriver, and you're going to want to get a good flat head as well. And you'll definitely need a small one, because the other jets, they have bigger slots. I was able to get them out. This one doesn't, so I had to use a smaller flat head. So this is our next jet, and trying to look through it again, I can't see through it, so it's plugged. So take a torch tip cleaner. So this one, you're probably not able to see it again because it just get too close and it doesn't want to focus, but there's a couple of little holes going sideways through this one. So you can kind of see it there. This wire is going straight through, so you know that hole's clean. And we'll just quickly check these other holes. So they're all clean, it goes through. And then what you're going to want to do is, like, your main hole there, you're going to try and feed that jet all the way through, and you can see it doesn't want to go, so it is fully jammed up at the moment. And we'll just try going from the other end. This one I might actually be able to poke through with the tip cleaner. Now your biggest thing will be making sure you don't use too big of a wire, because they do have a little bit of a file on the end of them for cleaning those torch tips out. Like I said, they're not really for cleaning jets, but they do work if you're slightly careful. So this wire seems to be almost all the way through. It's getting in there pretty far. Probably your best way to look down these is to hold them up to the light and then try to look down them. This one is actually cleared now, so I can see through it. I can see light on the other side, so it's good to go now. So we really don't need to clean it. We don't need to soak it. So we will actually put this one back together. So obviously you want to start those by hand. Start using a screwdriver, and if you start by using a screwdriver, you're not squared, you can cross thread or strip the threads out. So we'll just, like I said, we'll just put that one back in because it's good. So and you don't really need to crank them in, but just snug them up. Not so loose that they fall out, and not too tight that you break them off. So all we're going to do now, which was one of our main concerns, is take this screw out to remove our float and then the needle and seat underneath, because the fuel was just pouring out, which means the needle was stuck open, allowing fuel into the float bowl when it didn't require it, which then caused it to come out the overflow. So again, I've got my long handle screwdriver giving me lots of mechanical advantage. That screw just comes loose just like that. So once that screw comes out, be very careful when you pull it out. These pins slide side to side, so you don't want to lose those. And also your needle, which is right there, is attached by a little wire. So you just remove that from your float, and there's your needle. And then, like I said, your pin comes out as well. You can just remove that, give it a quick wipe so it's clean, and the float will pivot easily. It's nice and clean. So you can see it's moving quite freely. Now, as far as needle and seats go, there's two different types. Some have this rubber tip, some have metal tips. I haven't seen any metal ones for a long time now, but you're going to want to look for a ridge. If it's got a ridge, it may not seal, so you might need to order a kit. Ours looks pretty good, so we don't need to clean it. Give it a quick wipe, but looks in pretty good shape. So we are now just going to stick that back on our float. You can see this little tab here. The other thing too, on the top is a little nipple that is spring loaded. Just gonna want to make sure that that is moving freely and has the spring tension to bounce up and down. So that just slips onto there just like that. This is the seat here. There's a little Phillips screw that holds it in, so they are removable. But looking down inside it, it's actually pretty clean. So again, we're not going to worry about it. It looks like just our idle jet was plugged, so we're going to go ahead and soak that overnight. You don't need to let it sit for that long, but because I'm not sticking around the shop for that long, I'm going to let it sit overnight, and we'll check it tomorrow and make sure it's cleaned out. Now, if you're doing a full carb clean, this here is your mixture screw. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to turn it in first, counting as you go. So when you turn the screwdriver half a turn, you count a half, one, and then most carburetors are set up for 1.5, 2 turns, so 1 to 2. So as you turn it, you count you know, half, 1, and then wherever it stops, you know, 2 or 1 1/4, 1 3/4, and then take it out, clean it, put it back in, and then, like I said, when you screw it in first, that gives you your base setting. So if it's set for 1.5, screw it all the way in, back it out 1.5 turns, and then you should be pretty close, especially if your machine ran decent before and it just got dirty. Pretty well it for the carb. The other thing you can do, which we'll just check this out real quick, is you can take the top off here. That'll remove your vacuum slide. Looks like someone was starting to strip that screw already. Took a little bit of a effort to get that out. So I reckon you're going to want to make sure that you're holding this cap down, as there is a spring underneath. You see it lifts up there. And then, so there's that spring. And it just sits on a nipple, basically, holds a spring in place. And then your vacuum slide will come out. So there are a couple pathways in here. One air path is just going to the bottom of the slide, and what it does is creates low pressure. It will pull that slide upwards. You want to check your slide for any abnormal wear. This one, like I said, it was basically brand new. It had less than 400 kilometers, so it's in pretty good shape. So you can see there's a little bit of a, looks like cobwebs, so just took it apart to give it a quick inspection and clean whatever we find. Now, this is your main needle. They're removed by grabbing this top piece. And it is just a rubber O-ring and pulls out. Now, the biggest thing with these is they have grooves in the tops, and there's an E-clip that goes into a specific groove. You're going to want to make sure that if you are taking that off, you put it back in the same spot, because that adjusts your needle height. And then after that, there's washers and stuff. Make sure you put those back in the same order. This one does have a little bit of a film on it, so we'll just give that a quick spray with brake clean and wipe it down. But other than that, it's in pretty good shape. So again, it doesn't need to be soaked. So after a quick spray with our brake cleaner, it's looking pretty good. It's pretty clean. So all we're going to do now is drop that back down in there. And then put your holder back in as well. Now, when you're putting it back in, you saw how tough it was to take out. You can just give that a little spray with some WD-40, or personally I just like to lick my finger and wet it that way, you know, just to get the rubber wet enough to install it, so it helps slide it in. But you're not gonna, like, if you guys are just using whatever you have laying around and you spray the wrong type of fluid on a certain type of rubber, it'll eat it. So for instance, most fuel seals are a Vuitton rubber, and you know, they resist fuel and stuff, but if you were to get, say, transmission fluid on it, it would probably destroy that seal. So engine seals and fuel kind of are compatible with each other. Like if you're putting this together, you could probably put some engine oil on it, it'd be okay. But like I said, I just like to wet my finger, give it a quick wipe around and then install it that way. So that's what I'm gonna do. So after we wet that, we're just gonna grab it with our pliers. And twisting it as you push down will help it go in a lot easier too. So now that we know this is all clean, good to go, we can throw this back together. So it can only go in one way. You see that the slots are closer to the top. So that will line up. As you're sliding it down in, you're going to notice that your needle there has to go into that hole. Do not force it. You're going to want to be gentle with it, and you may need to wiggle as you slide it down. And then just like that, it's in place. If it doesn't go down in nicely and you have to give it a little wiggle, all it is that needle trying to go down into the jet. So that means your needle is not centered. And once that's done, you can then put the cap back on the top. So this, tighten them down both till they touch, and then snug them both up so that they're even. So actually what we're gonna do now, because like I said, this float bowl is a little bit dirty. You can kind of see it sitting in the bottom there. It's a bunch of black gunk from the old fuel drying up. So instead of using the cap with the jet in it, we're just going to dump the jet right into our float bowl, and float bowl and the jet will get clean at the same time. You might still need the cap depending on the float bowl. If it's not flat, you just kind of need something for it to sit in so it'll sit upright. I always have little caps and stuff around all the time. You can just take all your screws, or float bowl screws, and the float screw itself, and the float can just go in there. We won't lose our parts. So I've been cleaning carbs for a really long time. This product here is Clean Flow combustion chamber cleaner. I love using this stuff. It'll make dull, old looking jets look like they're brand new. And all you're going to do is you're just going to fill it up as high as you need to go in your float bowl to clean it. If you're using the cap, you just need enough to cover the jet so that it's completely submerged. So take your float bowl and just very lightly hold it, and you just start filling it up. And then you probably let this sit for a couple hours and then come back and check it. This stuff kind of evaporates over time. You can also see that it's really foamy right now. Once the foam settles, it's not nearly that high of a level, so you may have to refill it. Once that foam kind of dissipates, this is a goldish color, and once it starts eating all that crap up, it's gonna turn, dark and cloudy and milky, but this stuff works wonders. So that jet that was plugged, hopefully it eats away enough of it that we can kind of dig the rest of the stuff out, dirt out with our torch tip cleaners, and you can see already that it's kind of clearing up. So it is a goldish color, almost like brake fluid. but you can see how full it is there. I've got the bottom of the float bowl completely submerged, and the jet is also in there, you know, softening up whatever gunk is in that pathway so that our machine will idle again. So the other thing you can do is kind of scrape around with a screwdriver, help break it up. But honestly, this stuff does a pretty good job if you just let it sit for the afternoon or morning and check it later. Chances are it will eat that stuff right off of there. It'll liquefy, and then you just give it a quick spray with a brake clean afterward. But we're going to have to let this sit. Okay, guys, day 2. This thing has been sitting overnight and basically all day while I've been working. And you can kind of see how cloudy, greenish, murky that is now. So we're going to dump that out. Make sure you don't lose your jet in your drain bucket when you do. So you can see there how clean that is, and you can see our jet. Look how nice and shiny that looks. To get the residue off from that cleaner, we'll just give it a quick shot of brake clean. So I just looked down this jet, and without even having to put the torch tip cleaner through it, this jet is completely clear. I can see right through it to the other side. So this jet is now good to go. And we'll just do the same thing with the float bowl. We'll give it a shot of brake clean just to get that residue out. As you can see, completely clean, basically like it was brand new, fresh out of the package. And I don't know if you can really tell, but up to the point where the fluid was on the overflow pipe, it is much cleaner than the top part. So while it was sitting, when I got into work this morning, I just gave it a little stir with a screwdriver just to agitate it and kind of break anything up that was sitting on the bottom. So we're just going to put this jet back in here, into our carb. And like I said, just snug. You don't want to break that off. Obviously, you've seen how small that was, the threads and whatever. So yeah, lots of torque. You're going to snap that right off. But yeah, that jet basically looks like brand new, and you can see the other ones are still kind of tarnished. And yeah, that stuff just makes these jets look like brand new. So that's why I love using that stuff. It's a great product. So that is Clean Flow Combustion Chamber Cleaner. I'm sure you can get it at most auto parts stores. I believe I bought my last 2 cans from Bumper to Bumper, which is a store here in Canada. And we have our little cup with the rest of our parts in it, so nothing went missing. Grab our needle, our float, and the screw that holds the float in. Get that reassembled. If you guys are wearing rubber gloves when you do this, just be careful that as you're tightening screws down, if you're holding it with your finger, that the piece of the glove doesn't get caught underneath. Personally, I like wearing gloves. Mainly that my job is a mechanic. I deal with a lot of chemicals on a daily basis, and that stuff really destroys your hands and skin, and of course there's all kinds of warnings for cancer and everything else, so I do recommend wearing gloves. And then once you get your float back in, operate your float up and down and just watch to make sure that your needle is moving up and down freely. Sometimes when they're dry and you put them into the machine, you might have to tap the bottom with a screwdriver just to get that jet to fall free, and then once it's lubricated with fuel, it usually moves back and forth no problem. But sometimes initially they can jam up. So then after that, all we're going to do is put our float bowl on the bottom with our 4 remaining screws, and your carb will be back in one piece. Most of the time the float bowl screws have lock washers on them, so like I said, just get them down snug. You don't have to crank them. That's what most people do, is they crank them and then can't get them back out, and then your Phillips screw will end up stripping. And then the most annoying thing is having to cut a slot into it so you can use a flat screwdriver instead. That's always a pain. And I'd like to go corner to corner just so you get it tightened down evenly. Like I said, there is a rubber O-ring gasket in there, but you do kind of want to try and tighten it down evenly side to side. And the last one. Also, I don't know what this would be comparable to. Probably a Mikuni Carb, but this, of course, being a knockoff, has some wacky name to it, and it is right behind here. Probably can't see it, but it is a Kinzo Carb. So there you have it, guys. Carb clean. Not a complete one, but close enough. Start to finish. It'll be a couple of weeks before I'm home because I'm up in camp still, but once I'm there, we'll shoot another video getting this carb installed and testing out how the machine runs now that it has a clean carburetor installed. So, catch you guys in a couple of weeks with another video, and hopefully a lot of you are able to complete this task on your own now with confidence.